transparency of the paintings is quite important to me. The way I layer is I want you to be able to see through the objects, see through the architecture, see what makes the architecture, see through the human, see what are the constituents of all of these parts. The transparency, I think, sort of layers them on top of each other, but also tries to highlight how they are merged at the same time, how we exist in different paradigms, but we have a kind of interconnectedness that we can't avoid. I've often found I like to add a lot and then take away. And as I take away, it leaves traces of what was there before. And I feel like that adds depth to the painting. So there's not many flat areas that don't have a history to them in terms of layering. And sometimes they're hard to look at because there's too much going on in them. In the same way that some music can be difficult to listen to, but I kind of want to have some works that push that idea of them being difficult to look at or overloaded with information. When I was 19, I travelled to Holland and I was invited to work for my uncle in a set building company there in Gouda. I ended up staying for kind of 6 months or so. Actually stayed in a squatted fortress for a while and ended up near Nijmegen and Arnhem. Ended up doing some painting, some murals on their squat wall, and then found this whole community of travellers and young squatters, I suppose, that were travelling all around Europe. Many of them artists, performers, buskers, street performers. And they were connected with South America, and I just kind of got starry-eyed about the whole travelling artist, I suppose. I ended up in South America for around 3 years. Spent time drawing and painting, and maybe sometimes even do strange abstract portraits of people. Met a lot of artisanos out there travelling with their handcrafts and their art, selling work in local markets. I feel like South America definitely influenced my work quite a lot in terms of patterns and traces and layering techniques, colours. Ideas and concepts while I'm painting, they kind of flow through me, I suppose, from what I'm interested in. Urban landscape has definitely infiltrated my work from having lived in London for the last 10 years or so. And as I kind of develop ideas, I'm taking photos, I'm looking at architectural design, architectural landscapes, how people exist within these landscapes, how we feel and how we move. I suppose I'm always trying to look into what's going on inside the architecture of these spaces, what's going on inside the person as we move around inside these spaces. It's a kind of urban ecology that I'm interested in, I think, and how it reflects on us as humans. This work, called it Post-Human Seduction. In this particular painting, we're looking at the deconstructed figure and how it exists within the environment. There's a lot of deconstructed elements in there of me fusing architecture with the human form being disconnected but then reassembled within an environment. A kind of symbiosis, I suppose, an urban ecology. Kind of see them as being deconstructed figures of the future, but their transparency is still reflecting maybe a disconnectedness with the present in terms of how we're kind of seduced into these metaverses or these AI technologies. We're sucked into our phones, we're sucked through computer screens. I feel like we already exist in our imaginations in multiple different dimensions and different places. And it's important for us to have a grounding back to nature and reality and architecture. So when I sit there and I get experience flow and I get into hours of work, things start to happen and I feel like I'm not really thinking too much and I feel completely relaxed. My breathing changes. There's a lot of control with the brush when you're trying to make certain marks. There's a lot that can be said for mark making in terms of communicating meaning through mark making. So, you know, a mark can be like an allegory for something else within the work. You can use it as a symbol or a tool to express movement or direction or even an ephemeral object. In many of my works, I like to have windows through to other environments, other places, and trying to create a sort of depth of field, but also a sensation of there being ways of escape, but also ways of passing through into other places. We're looking through the human, we're also looking through the architecture, through the window. Different realms, I suppose, are different layers that we don't see. Maybe I'm painting the unseen or the internal workings of our world that we wouldn't see without the right equipment, but that's just part of the imaginative process of not being constrained by the practicalities of reality.